Jamie Court is here from ConsumerWatchdog. Jamie, we're going to try to hold you to 10 minutes, but I am adjusting for every interruption.
Thanks. I'll try to do 10 minutes. I mean, my plea here, if I can get this working, is that for one thing, which is more information. I mean, we spent a lot of time, for instance, on Skip's slide about PAD 5, and really generalized to California, and that's what we had. But California is 67% of the production in PAD 5, but not all of the production in PAD 5. We have pretty good information about supply, but I just want to bring it back to the fact that today in California, even with supply normalized, we're still 75 cents above U.S. prices in LA and 65 cents above prices in the rest of the state. And the reality is, if you take the last 10 months where we saw these price spikes and go through the end of November, the difference between what U.S. drivers paid and California drivers paid, $9.6 billion. So we're going to, over this year, $10 billion is going to be the added freight that Californians pay. And we even took out the extra differential in taxes for these 10 months and came at $8.1 billion, or $341 more per driver. That's what Californians are paying after a tax differential with the U.S. because of our higher gas prices. And that is...
Does that number include the cap and trade premium, or is that just the tax?
Well, we took out the tax differential, which is about 10 cents a gallon. Right. So if you take out another billion, and we're at $7 billion over 10 months.
And did it do any adjustment for differential cost of producing our gas?
No. So it's $6 billion, and then add in. My point is the Star Wars. I read in the paper this morning. Star Wars globally, the series grossed $4.4 billion in its lifetime, worldwide. California's oil refiners have made $10 billion more off our, if you want to go conservative, say $7 billion after adjusting for all the things that the oil companies say are extra in California. It's an astounding amount. And so what I'm trying to do today is go beyond the supply side, which we've talked about. Obviously, in the profit reports, we've seen Tesoro and Valero have the best first 3 quarters ever off California oil refinery. They are the only oil refiners that break out California oil refining profits, and I'd urge you as a recommendation of this committee to have all refiners in California do it. Tesoro saw a 4 times the average profit. Their profits in the third quarter, first 3 quarters, 4 times the average in the third quarter for Valero, 12 times the same quarter last year. They're just through the roof, and you can see it in the CEC margin breakdowns that where last year when we were paying roughly $3.77 a gallon, most of it was going to crude. Now the vast majority is going to the station margins and the refiner margins. And I would also say that the station margin breakdown here, it's not clear for me how Gordon makes the break, but I actually think a lot of that belongs in the refiner margin. Maybe we could talk about it in the panel, because what we've seen is, in addition to the supply problems, this is what we presented last time. When there are periods of normalcy in supply, we have seen this huge, unprecedented gap between branded and unbranded rack prices that I've talked about before. This is what we showed last time. Historically, going back to 2005, you'll see a 4 to 5 cent average. And only in this year have we seen this unbranded, branded rack price go up to over 30 cents. We overlaid the gap between branded and unbranded racks and with the inventory levels, and I think what you can start to see a pattern of, the green line is obviously the difference. And what you'll see is when we have supply disruptions, you'll see obviously the low supply driving the higher price. But in peaks like May, look at May where we're back in the zone, we start to see that unbranded, branded rack gap up to 30, 35 cents. What that means is at 80% of the stations, which are branded, there is a price that's going to be 30 cents higher than what's at the unbranded stations. It's a way of
just to clarify, yeah. These are rack prices.
These are rack prices, and I'm going to get to that in a bit. Yeah, this is and they're CEC prices. So this is CEC data. Now, we talked about this in the last meeting, and it's particularly troubling in the case of Tesoro, which when it bought the Arco brand, pledged that it wouldn't charge Arco stations anything different than it would in the unbranded market, and actually made a pledge to that effect. But what we're seeing is, if you look in October and November, do you see how we're coming back down on the branded, unbranded rack to, something that's more normal historically? Well, there's a new phenomenon, and this is something we're going to talk about today. There's a new phenomenon, and this just, I think, bolsters our point for greater transparency. The information we're getting through Opus about branded and unbranded racks, the information the CEC is getting, is being subverted by a new tactic that started, as we understand it, in May and June and has escalated. Valero, Tesoro, ExxonMobil are working through a whole group of super jobbers. These are people who go right to these refiners, and these refiners are giving them basically real deals on gas that they then sell to unbranded stations. This is in the unbranded market at really cheap wholesale prices. Let me show you one of these super jobbers, NGL. NGL is a super jobber. This is the sheet. They're selling gas on December 11th at $1.53 in the unbranded market. And let's take a look at the same pricing at the rack for unbranded in Van Nuys, $1.83. So we're seeing the unbranded rack 30 cents higher than these bulk dark trades that have only, to our knowledge, and maybe Lynn can talk about this, have been seen this year. And it's a way of hiding from the spot market price in Opus what the real price of gas is. Because the real price of gas is what they're selling on the unbranded market. This is why you'll see at unbranded stations or Costco an unbelievable difference between what you will pay there and what you will pay at the branded market. So these refiners in the 20% of the unbranded market are basically dumping the cheap fuel. The wholesale prices are significantly cheaper than the spot prices published by Opus, which is the information we really have before us, and the information that traders and dealers have when they make their trades and deals. The station owners don't see these special deals, including the unbranded folks who buy at the rack, or the branded stations, and as a result, the ones who aren't getting this deal are overpaying, largely the branded stations. The branded market, which is 80% of the market, this is a way that refiners have been able contractually to keep retail prices artificially high. So we're talking about a pricing strategy to supplement a low supply strategy. Refiners have the power to set the dealer tank wagon price as well as the price sold, I guess, through the branded rack. Most of this is dealer tank wagon. That's directly to the refinery. And at 80% of the stations, these dealer tank wagon prices are 30 cents higher than the unbranded prices. And if you look at those special deals that we've just shown you, in many cases, that spread can go to 50 cents, or in some cases can go to 50 cents. So by setting a higher price at these branded stations, which the refiners have control over the price there, the street price remains artificially high. Now, this is something that we've thought about before, but really makes a lot of sense in the conjunction with this pricing strategy of dealer tank wagon. How do each of the refiners know what the other refiner is charging through the dealer tank wagon? We don't know what the dealer tank wagon price is. The public doesn't. Opus doesn't. The Lundberg survey publishes, for a very steep cost, all dealer tank wagon prices at almost every street corner in the state of California. So 4 refiners control 78% of the market. Those refiners and the rest in the market know what their competitors are charging by subscribing to a newsletter that CEC doesn't get because it can't afford it, that publishes on every street corner what every branded station charges. And instead of picking up a phone call to their competitor, what do? When they set the price of their dealer tank wagon prices, they know exactly what the price is across the street. That is collusion. Last time you asked me whether there was any evidence of collusion. And I can tell you, having looked into this, there is. Sharing pricing information for 80% of the market, among 4 refiners that control 78% and the rest of them, that is a way to keep the price artificially high. That is a way to make the world record profits they're making. I mean, we saw gold record profits this year, but recently in this third quarter, they're platinum profits. And it's all based on these pricing strategies.
Jamie, can I ask you, so Lundberg, you know about this Lundberg DTW price sheet.
We know about both the backdoor trades and the Lundberg.
I'm not asking about that, though. I'm asking about the DTW price sheet. How did you find out about it?
From people in this market, whistleblowers, traders, and others who are very upset that not everybody in the market's getting the fair deal. That some station owners are sitting and saying, wait a second, they don't know about the special deal to the unbranded stations.
No, I'm asking about this DTW price.
That's how I know, because of people who, okay, let me tell you how the Lundberg works. If you're a gas station owner and you report your DTW price to Lundberg, you get a free subscription to Lundberg. That is how Lundberg has collected those prices.
So wait, every gas station is getting
branded station that participates in the Lundberg survey.
Wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
Every branded gas station is getting this DTW price sheet?
Yes.
So
every branded gas station that participates with providing pricing data to the Lundberg survey as part of that gets back the sheet that shows the pricing data on the Lundberg survey.
Lundberg puts out many products. That's why I'm asking you specifically. They get the product that has this every street corner in California.
The gas stations who are branded, who participate in reporting, because the refiners aren't reporting it, the gas stations are reporting it. As part of that service of reporting, they get back the sheet, and the oil refiners, of course, can buy, or others could buy for a price that product.
Did you ask Lundberg about this? Like, how much does it cost?
We understand it costs $30,000. I haven't asked Lundberg about it.
$30,000
as a subscription, yeah.
A month?
A year.
Okay.
If you're not a dealer, you get it for free as a gas station owner. If the CEC tried to purchase it,
they would have to pay.
They'd have to pay about $30,000 a year, is what we understand. Yes.
But that's many commas to the right of the numbers you were showing about the cost of gas.
Yes. And I would urge that one of the things I would urge is that the state monitor that tape of data, even if it is $30,000.
Jamie, can we follow up one thing? Do you have any idea about how many are reported, which is the question of how many entities are getting this, which sounds like if this goes free to each gas station that reports, and most are reporting, this is a broadly distributed.
As I understand it, that's true. And we've heard that through station owners and traders. I can't tell you that it's every branded gas station in California, but I can tell you in Southern California and other places it is widespread. And I think that is an area of investigation for this
So
committee.
It's widespread information, really. It's not.
Well,
we can't get it easily unless we happen to know somebody who's.
Well, look, no, it's widespread. Let me be clear. It's information that the oil refiners can have access to and their branded stations can have access to. It's not information that unbranded stations have access to. And it's just like the branded stations don't have access to these to that information sheet that I shared with you about the unbranded deals in that part of the market. So what the refiners appear to have done with these dark deals is basically create a situation where what the spot market price is on the is not the true price or the cheapest price that gasoline's being sold for. It's being skewed because a significant part of the deals aren't happening at the rack. They're happening on the unbranded market through these dark deals. And similarly, the DTW, which should reflect the branded rack price, it is obviously inflated, but if you take into account what the real price in the unbranded market is, that DTW price or the unbranded rack price is actually much more inflated than one would gather.
Mr. Court, this is Dave Hackett. Do you have any information on, or do you know if this pricing data is volume weighted? And what that means is, because Costco sells gas cheap gas and they have a lot of volume at their stations. Is that reflected in the overall pricing number?
I'm sorry. Are you talking about? Are we talking about the Lundberg survey? What the Lundberg survey is?
I hear you complaining that unbranded stations get cheaper gas than branded stations, but I'm also wondering in your calculation of $8 billion, if that calculation reflects the fact that low pricers, high volume retailers sell more gas than traditional gas stations.
I'm sorry, you're talking about in terms of the $9 billion number. That
I think the $9 billion is sort of off.
It's a perspective
the question
opener.
is this a volume discount? Are they right?
Yes. Do the volume discounts show up in the average numbers?
Well, the average numbers are just the numbers reported, through the gas buddy versus the average national number. So it's a gas buddy number. Only what we did was take into account relative consumption. And you look at relative consumption in California versus America, and you do the math, and you take it from the franchise tax board in the case of California, and then you, by doing the math, you figure out based on the gallons bought and how much the cost is. This is the ballpark of what we're talking.
So you assume the retail distribution through outlets in California is
we would just take whatever AAA uses, which is what Gordon uses, we use. And we'll,
okay, thanks.
Yeah. Is Costco, so I'm trying to understand you, are you saying that Costco or big vendors are getting this lower price, which they...
Well, they clearly are getting the lower price.
They pass on to consumers, but people who are having an individual unbranded station are the ones who are disadvantaged? I mean, I'm trying to understand who's disadvantaged.
Well, the disadvantage is to the consumer, because what's happening is if 80% of the market is a branded station, and refiners, because they're setting the price that station pays, are able to raise it 30 cents to 50 cents over what's being charged at a Costco or an unbranded station, then the street price is artificially inflated for 80% of the customers. And even the unbranded market, by the way, doesn't lower. The unbranded retailers are doing very well. Costco's still doing very well, not as well as the rest of the unbranded market. But I do think that the branded dealers are disadvantaged if you're looking within the market, because they don't have access to the lowest price information. If they did, they might say, well, why am I paying this when this sector is paying this?
So in economics, we call that price discrimination. You know? So there's some market where someone will pay a higher amount for a pair of shoes. So you take your excess shoes, so not to put that in the market, and you sell those shoes to Bolivia. And then that way you keep the New York City market for shoes up. It's kind of like a basic concept. But just to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying that the branded refiners, knowing if they put all their products at whatever the market would be.
Well, it's the same refiners. They're just selling branded and unbranded, except for Chevron, which doesn't sell to the unbranded market. So if you're Valero, Tesoro,
you're saying that they're holding some product at a lower price into a certain market to hold up the price of the branded market.
That's right, which dominates, which affects the price consumers pays, because it's the big part of the market. And they're dumping the cheaper fuel to the unbranded sector, yes. And it's the same refiners. It's Valero, Tesoro, ExxonMobil doing it.
So what would you say if they said to you, well, A, we're not really doing that. It's just we can offload more product to Costco because they sell more. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, I would say that there is a federal antitrust law that says that if you are a buyer, you have a right to get the same product at a relatively the same cost, unless there's a reason the cost is different. This is the same product, except for maybe an injection at the terminal to make it a branded product, and well, see, severance money.
That's not my understanding. I assume you're quoting the Robinson-Patman Act, and that's not at all my understanding.
I'm glad you're not a lawyer. But look, I think the point is, if you're asking why California gas prices are 75 cents above today, America's or LA gas prices, America's, and you can only account for 10 cents in cap and trade, and you're going to give them 10 cents in taxation, you give them 10 cents in environmental costs for refinery turnaround, which I don't buy, Where's that extra 45 cents going? It's because the oil refiners, in addition to at times keeping supply limited, also have a pricing strategy to back that up when supply is in ample quantity to make sure the price stays artificially high till the next supply shortage. That's what we're trying to put on the table. This is an anti-competitive pricing strategy that uses the leverage these companies have over the market to charge artificially high prices to the dealers whose prices they control through the dealer tank wagon price.
Okay. Wait. Go ahead.
Just one quick question, Kathleen. Have you been able to get any information to compare the backdoor sales in 2015 with those in 2013, 2014?
The information we have from a very small number of people is that there were no backdoor dark trades prior to May of 2015. Zero. This is a new tactic. And what it points out is that refiners will always find a new tactic because of their market power. Which brings me to my solution, transparency, which I really hope will be part of the recommendations discussion. If you have an accounting for every deal over 2,500 barrels, you can eliminate dark market trade deals and know what gasoline is really being sold for on this market. If you have all dealer tank wagon prices publicly disclosed, as they are disclosed to the branded industry in the Lundberg survey, you will not only will it be much easier for you all and everybody else who's looking to figure out what's going on, it'll be easier for people who want to be competitive in this market to understand and figure out how to be competitive. All market players having access to the same information make sure the market will be protected from being gained. In addition to that, we've talked about the other type of information we really want, and I don't want to go over it again, but I do think one thing that's important that came out today is this question of ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil never publicly said, as far as I can say, because we looked for the statement, that they would be back online or offline. They say it through market surrogates. They say it through Bloomberg. They say it through an Opus reporter. They never swear under penalty of perjury anything. They never even make a statement that they could be sued on. They don't talk publicly about when they're coming back online. Everybody else talks about them. It's a rumor mill. And that rumor mill and innuendo is exactly why we didn't have the information to allow the importers necessarily to bring the product in. This is an extension of the problem in this entire market. It is a black box, a dark hole, and by opening up information, we can change that. Here's some other areas of concern. I just want to put on your plate and just so we can get to the panel discussion, but we have seen through the information we have, because we now have a Bloomberg terminal to look, that we've seen carb fuel being dumped in Arizona, being traded in Arizona. We
Really?
have seen, yeah.
There's real evidence that it is carb.
Share with you the screenshot.
Yes, we'd like to see that.
We have evidence that you have evidence that carb components or gasoline have been exported or never stopped and unloaded, as we talked about at the last meeting, and there's other evidence. We talked a lot about this. You're looking into this, refiners creating barriers to import in terms of how that market works. And there's some information that we received about other spot market manipulations, or call it manipulation or not, but you will go back to a slide we had more recently where you saw a big price spike in the spot market. It was on a previous presenter slide around July 6th and around September 8th, so July 4th weekend and Memorial Day weekend. And on those 2 days, and this is again information we have from the market, on July 6th, apparently Chevron and Tesoro bought almost the entire spot market for gasoline. Now, maybe it was because they thought they were running short after the holiday weekend, but the result was a 60-cent pop overnight in the spot market for gasoline. And on September 8th, the same thing happened. It was Chevron who made that purchase. But the point is, those types of purchases, which aren't always as transparent as they should be in terms of who are making that purchase, unless you're a trader, that can affect the spot market in a day. That can affect the type of volatility that we are seeing in the LA Harbor and elsewhere. The reason we're seeing this much volatility in the market, and we've asked many people about it, particularly in the LA Harbor, is because there are so many different prices being paid, either in the dark market from different people, that the volatility is all over the place. And if we had more information about this market, we'd be able to pinpoint more clearly what the real causes of these big differentials we have are. So I just urge you, as you go into the panel and elsewhere,
before you go away from that,
yeah.
before you may have said this before, but I just don't remember. What barriers have been
to import
that the refineries have created?
Well, they're the first of all, I mean, I'm not an expert, but what I have understood from people in the market is if you're going to bring some import in, you've got to go through a terminal that's controlled by the refiners, I think, except in one case. So if you're bringing a shipment in from someplace else, the refiners are going to probably be the buyer for that, and if they're not the buyer, they're likely to control the terminal and the access point by which that import's coming.
Okay, that's the whole of what you're aware of on that point.
Well, if I was aware of more, I would
yeah,
have
that's
explored it more.
somewhat inconsistent with what we heard last meeting by people who were involved with it. That's why I asked.
Well, in terms of barriers to import, I think, and shipping as a whole, I think hopefully we'll get an invitation to come back to a future meeting because we have some ideas about looking at shipping patterns that we'd like to present. But today what I really wanted to put on the table was this idea that we haven't really discussed in depth, which is there is a pricing strategy, a deliberate pricing strategy that I think rises to the level of an antitrust investigation based on the times when where low supply should be dictating a high price, that high price is maintained through these pricing tactics, which I believe are anti-competitive. And in fact, I think the oil refiners must be somewhat concerned about it as well, because I noticed sitting in the room with us today is Attorney General Bill Lockyer, who's working with the oil refiners on antitrust. Now, I think the oil refiners must have some concerns that what they're doing rises to the level of some type of prosecution, or they wouldn't have hired him. I don't believe that when any market that's this consolidated has this type of information available only to those players in it who can set the price and not to the public, that market can work fairly.
Jamie, can I have one quick question, and then we do have to get to the panel discussion. The DTW price sheet thing, when did that, is that a new activity in 2015, or were they giving out?
I honestly don't know when it began. I believe it predated 2015, but I don't think it's an historic. It's a very long history of that, and we can find out more information about that.
That would be great to know. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move right along. I apologize for not giving anyone a break, but we're going to try to do a panel discussion and still take a break for lunch.
I have one question.